Alright guys, Tactical here, and today we're going to talk about Red Reserve. Yesterday's similar breakdown video on Team Envious seemed to be enjoyed by a lot of you, so I thought I'd do a similar one on the first confirmed change we got for the 5v5 era. Who knows how long it will last, but this could be very historic. This was announced literally 2 minutes after the 5v5 announcement. If you missed any details of that, click the link on screen or in the description. So let's talk about the potential of this roster. Could another European team surpass them? How will they do on the international stage? Where does it leave their close competitors from the World War II season, such as Splice and Unilad? So like if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new. So the first thing to notice from this team is Bance is back on the Black Ops 3 Splice team without Josh. So Bance, Rated and Joe are back on the same team together. Of course, 3 out of the 4 members of the Call of Duty 2016 World Championship team that came second had that miraculous losers bracket run to get all the way to the grand finals. I think a theme you'll see with this team is that they're prioritizing chemistry and ensuring the team gets on well together than getting the most possible firepower on a team. Going into 5v5 setting, chemistry might be the most important thing you can possibly have. It's yet to be seen. I think Red Reserve are making a smart move overall. So to follow up the chemistry point, Bance is back with Zer0 from the Infinite Warfare Splice team that won the Global Pro League Stage 1 playoffs, where Zer0 had that dominant performance. We'll talk more about that in a second. That was the Bance Jerd Madcat Zer0 team. Zer0 went on to Red Reserve, replaced by Tommy, of course, at the start of the World War II season, and now Bance has followed suit onto Red with the 5v5 announcement. So all these players have played together before, I think, apart from Bance and Skrapz. I doubt they'll butt heads, but Bance has been known to butt heads with some of his teammates. I think with Tommy, there was issues in the World War II season which drastically affected their placements. But in terms of chemistry, this is pretty much as good as you could get, especially with Rated staying with Joe, of course, very much long-time partners. So Red Reserve are clearly going down the route of forming the European super team. And if you were to do it at home, where would you start? So let's look at the assault rifle. That's Rated. Probably the best European assault rifle we had in World War II. On the brink of maybe a top 5 in the world for the entire year. So he was excellent this year. Definitely better than his Infinite Warfare form. And Black Ops 3, he was also very good towards the end of the year on Splice. So I'm expecting more of the same into Black Ops 4. Rated has had all the placements in his career. The seconds, the thirds at times. But he's never quite got over the hump. Maybe this team is the one to get in there. Now, Zer0. This guy's making a statement to maybe be the best European player of all time. Madcat and Jerd might still just be above him because of their longevity and Madcat's victory he had back in Modern Warfare 3, but I think if this team wins a single championship this year and Madcat's team doesn't, then Zer0 is the best European player of all time. He come onto the scene in Black Ops 3, dominated with the assault rifle on that infused lineup. He goes into Splice on Infinite Warfare, probably has one of the most individually impressive performances of all time at an event at the Global Pro League Stage 1 playoffs. Look at the stats here. On the weekend, over 17 maps, Zer0 has almost a 1.3 KD, way more kills than his teammates on average. Of course, he's teaming for Bance with this event. 1.7 almost in Search and Destroy over 6 maps. Just insane stuff, and he kept the performances up towards Anaheim pretty much. This was the only time I remember in Call of Duty history where a European player has been arguably the best player in the entire game. And for this event, I'm almost certain he was. He was on another level. So, Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare, he played the main assault rifle role. He comes over to Red Reserve on World War II. Rated's the main AR, so Zer0 plays a more flex style role, and towards the end of the year he's almost playing an aggressive SMG, and he still very much held his own and was very competent in those roles. So probably argue that Zer0 was the best European player of the year, despite playing a completely different role to Infinite Warfare, where he probably also earned that title. So he's a super versatile player. If you're making a European super team, this is the guy you surely have to start with. Then you have Bance. He was a fantastic SMG in Black Ops 3. He really showed up towards the end of the season. I think a lot of you guys remember at Champs when he clutched that 1v2 with Glitch against Elevate to pretty much get Spliced to the grand finals. He is probably the best European player of Black Ops 3 overall. Maybe there's some other things you could argue, but considering his performance at Champs, that might put him at the top of the list. Infinite Warfare, he was decent, but not quite as good. And World War II, by his standards he set in the previous games, very poor indeed. If you look at the Call of Duty stats, this is courtesy of CODcompstats.com, you have to scroll down a long way to number 60 to find Bance out of 79 players, out of the entire season. 0.95 KD over 190 maps, nowhere near what we're used to expecting from him. So I think a lot of the success of this Red Reserve team relies on Bance getting back to his previous form, because as I'm going to talk about in a second, they've still got Joe, who you know is going to be a bit inconsistent, not always going to put up the same numbers, and maybe that's fine as long as you have 4 super talented players that are all doing their job. But if Bance once again has a lackluster year, I don't think this team can really contend for titles. We saw glimpses of what Bance could do at Birmingham this year, where he tore people up on the Iyama monitors. He dropped 16 map 5 against Optic to knock them out of the tournament in the losers bracket semis, and was just dominating kids all weekend. Now, as your fourth, you've got Skrapz. I think that any top tier team nowadays needs to have some element of young blood on the team. There's a breath of fresh air, can give a different kind of insight on the team. Sticking with veterans for too long isn't really a recipe for success, so I think Skrapz was a great pickup. He really had his breakout maybe in Infinite Warfare on the Fnatic team, but kind of overshadowed by his brother in that game. World War II, he's been fantastic. I think he averaged something like a 1.06 KD, as you can see right here over the course of the year, which is fantastic considering a lot of the time he was using an SMG. I talked about Zer0 could be the European Player of the Year in World War II. Skrapz definitely has that nomination up for grabs. I think he was Red Bull UK Esports Player of the Year for several months in a row and was one of the top SMG talents of the year for sure. So considering there's not too many competent SMG players in Europe, Skrapz is surely someone you have to have on your team. Now lastly we have Joe. He's been on the Red Reserve roster pretty much as long as they've been in Call of Duty, and we know that in terms of pure aim mechanics he's not quite up to par with the rest of his teammates, but his teammates have given him great praise for his in-game intelligence and his smarts, I guess you could say, particularly in Search and Destroy and Capture the Flag. We can hope that Black Ops 4 will be a very tactical game that gives intelligent players like Joe to hit a perfect timing on the flank and get behind the enemy, and maybe Capture the Flag as a game mode won't come back at all. Surely it's so difficult to get a flag out against 5 players, and maybe I'll do a video on a rule set I'd like to see and what game modes I'd like to see played considering the switch to 5v5. Joe's known for his flanking and that style of play, and I'm not sure that'll be as effective in Black Ops 4 due to the high time to kill. You come up behind 2 guys. In World War II you're guaranteed both kills, but it takes so long to finish the first one that you might well get traded before you can get the 2-piece, and due to the high time to kill it might make more sense just to stack up as a team and run into a bomb site. This Red Reserve roster definitely has players that are willing to go in first and bait out their life, and Joe's one of those guys, so I'm sure he'll be a good role player and he'll do what his team requires of him, but maybe down the line we'll find out that pure slaying and pure gun skill is what's required more than chemistry. But I for one am hoping chemistry's high on the list, and I think Red Reserve have made the right choice in holding off of any more changes. They know they've got a great core here, they know the chemistry is amazing within the team, and sticking how it is definitely the right choice, I think. So, Bance of course leaves Splice. Madcat and Josh have already been released, I think, so that's only Joe remaining. He's searching a North American team, I believe. Tons said that Splice were looking to pick up the Evil Geniuses roster that actually got acquired by Envy. I talked about that yesterday if you're interested. Classic is also a rumour to Splice. Aqua from Echo Fox would make sense as well because they need an assault rifle. People have been talking about Tommy as well, but I feel like with the success he's been having on his stream, maybe he's not too willing to move to the States, because I'm pretty sure Jerd will be going over to the States if they do succeed with the North American roster pickups. So that's something to consider on that front. Now we have to talk about Skrapz' former team in Unilad. This is a really interesting situation. I think last year, coming into World War II, who we thought the European super team was, definitely Splice, right? Bance, Tommy, Madcat, Jerd, -0 plus Tommy from the roster that won Stage 1 playoffs, and they come out hot. They come second at Dallas, the first event. They eventually get back to good form to come second at Birmingham, but towards the end of the year, Red were definitely the strongest European team. They were consistently competing for titles, and Unilad in fact were by far the second strongest. Splice weren't even close to Unilad's level and competing with them. So while Red seems like the European super team, by the end of the year who knows what will happen and how will the other European teams look to respond. So Unilad have an interesting situation. Alex supposedly has gone to Madcat's team, which is Madcat, Josh, Dave and Alex, and who they're going to add as a 5th is currently unknown. Their organisation is also up for grabs. Interestingly, the Unilad core that remains, that's Zed, Wuskin and Shawnee, they've removed all the Unilad branding from their Twitter, so my guess is that Unilad are leaving Call of Duty. Wuskin actually has a picture of him with Tommy in his AVI when they're on Fnatic, so maybe that's a clue you can derive. But the reason why I'm unfollowing is because Wuskin now follows Chad Larson, the president and owner of Team Reciprocity, who are supposedly picking up a team. So does Shawnee, as you can see right here. He's also removed all the Unilad stuff, and so does Zed. Follow them right here. Zed still has Unilad branding in his AVI, but what can you really really say about that. Also, I think the Call of Duty manager for Unilad, that's Curtis or APOC, he's removed all the branding as well. So I don't really know where these guys are going to go, but I'm fairly sure they're going to go on a different organisation. Maybe Reciprocity is the one. Who did they get as their 4th and 5th thirds? Very much up in the air. A few European teams have been locked down. I think this Unilad team should go after a player like Urban. He's a free agent. Shawnee has played with him before, back on the Red Reserve roster, as you can see right here. They didn't really have much success apart from a second at CWL Sheffield, but they've definitely been a duo in the past. Tommy, of course, is on the market. PT as well, because PT and Quicker have teamed for a little bit, but PT isn't in Quicker's new team. The old Vitality lineup, Maple, Emigrant Chain, they might be up for grabs. Dylan CoD as well from the Brash lineup that impressed a lot of champs, and towards the end of the year he's on the market. And maybe even a player like Swanee comes back into the fray. Who knows what's going to happen. But all these European teams are leaving to duke it out to try and compete with Red Reserve's new lineup. It's definitely an impressive one, and I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on it, whether they can compete internationally. So, like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I've got a few more videos in the pipeline that I'll try and get out over the coming days. I'm going back to university on the weekend, so I might not have all the time in the world to keep up with the daily uploads, but I'm doing my best for now. I appreciate all the support, it's been fantastic lately, and hopefully we get more juicy announcements over the coming days. So, thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.